Pizza Hut, a police pursuit and a plaster cast. When I was 13, I broke my leg in a nasty bicycle accident. I ended up in a plaster cast from my hip to my ankle for 8 weeks. As it was coming up to Christmas, my younger brother wanted to go to the theater to see the Christmas show. I was 13. Moody and accompanied by a bright pink cast everywhere I went. I was not feeling it. My dad, never one for going to the theater, offered to take me to Pizza Hut instead. It was a rare opportunity to spend time with my dad, who was often working very long hours. He worked as a police officer, which at the time, I didn't really take an interest in what he did. We had a great evening at Pizza Hut and we got back into the car to go home with full bellies and some leftover pizza. I remember babbling away to my dad as I had been the whole night. Enthralled, I had my dad's undivided attention. After a while I noticed he wasn't really responding anymore. We were fairly near home but still on main roads before we turned off towards our housing estate. At first I thought he'd just lost interest, but I glanced across and noticed he was permanently looking in the rear view mirror. I asked him what was up and he said, "The car behind us has followed us all the way from Pizza Hut." I glanced behind and commented that we were still on main roads. I couldn't see that this was an unusual route for this guy to take. He said, "I need to see whether he is. I don't want to lead this guy to our house." I rolled my eyes. My dad was always paranoid about stuff like that. We couldn't even tell friends we were going on holiday because he was convinced the house would be broken into while we were away. We were coming up to a residential area before ours that I knew from doing a newspaper round. I suggested the street coming up on the left, as it looped around in a horseshoe shape through a housing estate and brings you back out on the same main road we were on, just further up. Nobody would take this road to come out onto the main road again. My dad turned off, and so did the car. I will never forget that feeling, that sinking feeling, as I watched the car sharply turn behind ours. The car placed its full beams on. I let out a gasp and looked to my dad. He'd gone into work mode. He had completely shut me out. He accelerated down the street, and as we came to the main road I saw there were many cars still on the main road. He pulled straight out onto the main road, meaning the car coming on the main road needed to brake sharply and held down their horn at us. I kept my eyes on the road ahead, breathing deeply as my dad weaved in and out of lanes. A part of me was completely terrified and a part of me was still convinced this was not really happening. That he had exaggerated or mistaken this. He wasn't really following us. I dared to look in the side mirror and saw it was a different car behind us. I felt myself relax a little. We turned left at the coming roundabout, giving very little room to anyone, and a few moments of holding my breath thinking we were going to hear the sound of metal on metal. The street we had turned onto was slighter, quieter than the road previous. I slowly glanced into the side mirror. It was still a different car behind us. I sighed relief and thought this had really been my dad's imagination. Suddenly, the rear view mirror became completely illuminated again, and I awkwardly turned in my seat to see a car pull out sharply from behind the car behind us and pull in quickly behind ours again. I looked to my dad again. He grabbed his phone from his pocket and told me to call someone in particular in his phone and put it on speaker. My hands were shaking. I could barely press the buttons. A cheerful voice answered, and before he could say anything else my dad quickly summarized what had happened. There was a pause and I could hear voices speaking in the background, radios, beeping, and answering through radios. My dad barked at me to keep naming the streets we were on to the guy on the phone as my dad randomly turned down streets, trying to keep to main roads. I'm randomly calling names and trying to remember to say the direction we were heading. The car was so close behind us and completely blinding any view behind us. All I could think was, please don't hit us. If we crash I cannot run. What the hell can I do? My leg had only just been plastered. I knew I stood no chance. I suddenly wondered if they were getting close enough to take a shot at us. This for me was unthinkable. It was in England. That is not the norm. Why the hell would someone want to shoot us? We continued to weave down streets and random turns as I was tossed around the front seat, clutching onto the mobile in my trembling hands. The voice on the phone shouted, "Turn into the Tesco car park that's coming up on the left. We have 3 response vehicles coming from the other direction." My dad sharply turned into the car park, skipping the red light. I shut my eyes. Again waiting for the sound of metal on metal. As we swung into the near empty car park, the car behind us in close pursuit. Blue lights surrounded our car from what felt like all directions. The sound of sirens was deafening. My dad got straight out of the car and ran behind the car. I screamed, still thinking someone could have had a gun, and tried to look over my shoulder to see when my door swung open and a police officer was crouching into the car to help me get me out. My arms were completely jelly. I could not even use the crutches to help me stand. Another police officer came, and between them they helped me as I hopped to the back of the police car. They were kind and tried to distract me as I was trying to see what was going on and where my dad was. I couldn't really see from my angle, and I also couldn't turn properly due to my leg. They did their best to reassure me, and one had clearly just been through the nearby McDonald's drive-thru offered me his tea. I just sobbed, begging them to tell me what was going on. My dad after some time came over to the car and told them to take me home. He had checked and my mom was back home with my brother. As the police car turned around in the car park back towards the entrance, we could see the police surrounding the vehicle, and 3 men in what looked to be their late 20s were handcuffed leaning over the car, whilst a sniffer dog and 2 police officers were taking things out of the car, one of which was a baseball bat. When my dad got home later that night, I asked him what it was about. Who the hell were those men and why were they following us? He was very reluctant to tell me anything. He did admit it was because of him that they were following us. He explained that he was in a drugs team that dealt with, how I understand this as an adult, the interception of large shipments of drugs that were being transferred across the country, and sometimes people lost a lot of money when they were caught. I just stared at him. I had no idea what to say. He just shrugged and said, "Sometimes people get upset about that. Dear the drug lords whom my father took your drugs or money from. I'd rather not meet." Pizza Hut madness. As the title says, this insanity happened at a Pizza Hut. How no one caught that on video I will never know, because if they did it'd be viral and I'd probably be famous or something. But I don't know if this creepy or what. Okay, so me and my friend are at Pizza Hut and we just ordered our food and was waiting for it. So we sitting at our booth talking when all of a sudden some dude just walk right up to where we was and just stand there. At first I was so engrossed in telling her about the last episode of Empire that I completely ignore the guy, but when I do notice him I just kind of give him a "Hi, what can I help you with?" type of smile. "I just gotta tell you. You don't understand, you gotta know," he said all loud. So me and my friend just like asking him what's wrong, and like is he okay? And he just keeps repeating it, talking about "I just gotta know." So then the lady comes with our pizza while the dude's still ranting about nothing, and she sits it down on the table and gives him a weird look, and he gives her one back. I can tell she don't feel comfortable because as soon as she sat the pizza down she was gone. So my friend was like, "Is there something you need, sir?" And he was like, "Yes." He actually had the nerve to push my friend aside and have a seat right next to her before looking at me and saying, "You are one fine chocolate diamond." My mouth was on the floor at this point and my friend was giving him the same look. "I think you need to gone on," I said to him. No, I was disturbed. "The hell is a chocolate diamond? You look like a chocolate milkshake I want to slurp up till the very last drop," he said, making a nasty slurping sound. I at first glanced and around to see if anybody but us was hearing this insanity before I told him to knock it off. "Oh, I see how it is. I ain't good enough, huh?" At this point my eyebrow raised to the heavens because clearly we had a nut job on our hands. "What is you talking about, sir? Who are you?" I had asked him. "Don't act like you don't know me." He literally screamed this and banged his fist on the table, making me and my friend both jump. I sat all the way back away from this fool, and my poor friend was trapped between the window and him, so if he did snap she was a goner. By now he had caught everybody's attention and they was all looking at us. "Here," he said before taking a slice of pizza and shoving it at me. "Feed me like in them movies," he demanded. I looked from him and the pizza in shock. "Oh my God," I remember saying before looking at my friend. Hey, you hear me? You do as I say and feed this bloody slice of pizza to me now," he yelled. Thankfully the manager came over and was like, "What's the problem here?" The dude just kind of looks up at him and shrugs. "The only problem here is that you just deboed your way up in here just as my wife was about to feed me a slice of pizza that I bought like in them romantic movies. Now why you got to single us out for? We wasn't doing nothing, all I was doing was finna be fed by my wife. Now can you please leave you upsetting my daughter," the dude said as he put his entire hand in my friend's hair and pulled. she immediately started screaming bloody murder and tried to pry his hand loose, and he was like, "Look what you doing to my baby girl, you upsetting her and my wife." The guy said, "I don't know him, get him off of her." I remember screaming, and the manager and another worker had pulled him off her, but the dude put up a fight and was slammed against our table. "Baby, help me, they tryna rape me, baby, don't let em do it. My booty hole too tight for this shit." The guy screamed, and all I say is, "What the fuck?" as I watched them haul him away with him still screaming and struggling. The whole damn restaurant was looking and talking about what happened, and I was getting my purse to leave and my friend was in hysterics. Two laddies who had been on the other side of the room came over and started asking us questions, and all I remember telling her is that I didn't know who the hell that psycho was. The manager came and asked us if we were okay and if we wanted him to phone the police, and my friend immediately was like, "Hell yeah." So as we talking to the manager, he looked up and he looked pissed off. I didn't want to turn because I just knew that fool was behind us. Lo and behold, soon as I turned my neck, guess who was standing right outside the window looking in? I mean, he had his entire face smushed against the window looking dead at us. "Get away from the window," the manager had yelled at him, but the man only pointed at me and made a disgusting kissing face, even going so far as to lick the glass. "Oh, I've had enough of him, you all need to call 911 right now. He needs to go to jail," some older lady said. The manager had told the lady to calm down, but she was mad and told him she don't plan on calming down. I don't know who did, but the police was called, and like 5 minutes later and the police roll up and the dude bolts. Now this is the part that I wished had have gotten caught on camera. This fool running around the parking lot with only one shoe, screaming like a man who done lost his mind, and the police chasing him. All we could hear was rape, rape. This is a story for the grandkids, I swear. I told this story to just about everybody and they all laughed, but I find it sad. Like, dude must have been drunk or high. But I think the real victim here is my friend. She's terrified of Pizza Hut now. Pizza creep, my boyfriend, and I have terrible eating habits. One night, after a long Wolfenstein session, he was craving pizza. He wanted the greasiest, most heart-blocking pizza we could find. Luckily for him, there's a Pizza Hut down the road. He ordered it online, but as we're both stingy, we decided to pick it up instead of having to pay a delivery fee. I waited in the car while he went inside to pick it up. Now, this Pizza Hut is situated in the parking lot of a strip mall, so one would assume it's a brightly lit, safe space. One would be incredibly mistaken. The parking lot was pitch black if you weren't right next to the restaurant. Usually this doesn't bother me, but that night there was something wrong with our order and we needed to wait another half hour to get it. I still stayed in the car because I assumed the pizza would be ready in, like, 5 minutes or something. I just decided to relax and jam to some CDs. A truck pulled in right next to my car. It was rusted and dented, but that's not uncommon in my redneck-infested town. It seemed the occupants were in the same situation as us. The driver ran in to get their order and the passenger stayed behind. I tuned them out until the passenger started moving erratically. I looked over and the man was clearly on something. His stringy hair was plastered to his forehead and trailed down the back of his worn-out denim vest, but what truly scared me was how he moved. He was talking to himself, non-stop babbling that I couldn't comprehend. And his entire torso was bobbing up and down. I'm not usually so easy to frighten, but the entire situation just seemed wrong. I texted my boyfriend, pleading with him to come back to the car, but he was adamant on getting his food. The man in the truck looked me dead in the eyes and gave me the most sinister grin I've ever seen. That was when I realized he had been masturbating. I quickly locked the car doors and scrambled to find the small knife I keep in my glove box. Now armed and alarmed, the man and I stared each other down. Just as the truck door swung open, my boyfriend emerged from the restaurant, pizza in hand. Leave it to a theater nerd to know when to make an entrance. My boyfriend unlocked his door and was about to slide in when the man confronted him. To my horror, the man's pants were wet in patches, and he gave my boyfriend a shit-eating grin. "Usually I don't like the fat ones," he said, voice gravelly and deep, "but I'll make an exception." "How much for an hour?" I started to cry. My man straightened his back, and while creepy truck guy easily towered over him, he gave his best intimidating glare, "More than what your life is worth." After his moment of bravado, my boyfriend quickly slid into the car and peeled out of the parking lot. We weren't followed, but I was paranoid for the rest of the night. At least the pizza was good, pizza creep. Let's not meet.